My name is Lauren Beckett, and on the day my younger sister was supposed to walk down the aisle in front of 300 guests at Seattle's most prestigious hotel, I was sitting cross-legged on a bamboo deck in the heart of the Monteverde cloud forest, watching the sun rise through a veil of mist. My phone was powered off. Intentionally. A few days earlier, my family had officially uninvited me from Isabelle's wedding. Not just removed me as her maid of honor. Not demoted to a bridesmaid. Uninvited. Completely. And so, instead of standing stiffly in pastel chiffon beside a sister who'd told me I was draining her joy, I flew to Costa Rica with a single carry-on, a closed heart, and a determination to finally put myself first. I remember that morning so clearly, the way the early light kissed the treetops, the scent of damp earth rising after rainfall, and the calm I felt for the first time in months. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was just free. People often say, cutting yourself off from your family is selfish. That running away is cowardice. But I've learned something else. Choosing your peace over a life built on pain isn't weakness, it's strength. What I didn't know then, as I sipped black coffee with two strangers I'd just met at the lodge, was that the wedding I'd been cast out of, shamed and silenced for questioning, was already collapsing without me. And when I finally turned my phone back on, they weren't just calling. They were begging. Before you hear the whole story behind that moment, if you've ever been abandoned, hurt by your own family, and still forced to smile through it, leave a comment. I'm not telling this to complain, but because, maybe somewhere, you've felt what I felt. Now, let me take you back to where it all truly began. Growing up in Bellevue, Washington, Isabelle and I looked like the picture-perfect daughters. Our parents, David and Marcia Beckett, were the kind of suburban achievers who had holiday cards printed in September and organized family vacations in spreadsheets. From the outside, it all seemed ideal. A lakefront home, tennis lessons, matching Easter dresses. But inside our home, there was a quiet imbalance no one wanted to name. I was the dependable one. The straight-A student with an early fascination for logic puzzles and a perfectly color-coded planner by the 6th grade. I got into Stanford on a merit scholarship, graduated early with a degree in computer science, and had a full-time job at a Seattle-based software company before I even turned 23. I paid off my student loans within 5 years, bought my own condo, never missed a birthday, never made waves. And Isabelle, well, Isabelle sparkled. She was the spontaneous, emotionally vivid sister, gorgeous and messy in that intoxicating way people mistake for charm. She was always late, always broke, always just one moment away from a new crisis. And yet, people adored her, especially our parents. When she dropped out of art school in her junior year, they said she was finding herself. When she borrowed money and forgot to pay it back, it was a miscommunication. When she got fired from 2 consecutive retail jobs, Dad blamed mismanagement. I noticed it in small ways at first. When she missed curfew, she got hugs. When I did, I got grounded. If I expressed frustration, I was being critical. If she had a meltdown, it was sensitive and brave. I didn't say anything, not really. I just kept being the one who showed up. The one who helped pay off Isabelle's parking tickets, who reviewed her resumes, who answered tearful midnight calls when her heart was broken again, always again. The dynamic was so deeply entrenched that I hardly questioned it anymore. Until the engagement. Isabelle met Bradley Moore at some tech industry cocktail party she only attended because I convinced her to go. He was 8 years older, a private equity guy who oozed charm and wealth. And when he proposed to her, after just 5 months of dating with a ring the size of a small glacier, entire family acted like we'd hit the jackpot. My parents were ecstatic. Bradley had connections. He knew politicians, hosted galas, donated to museums. He's everything we ever dreamed for you girls, Mom said one night over dinner. I wasn't sure who you girls included. At first, I tried to support the engagement, even when I saw things that made my stomach turn. Bradley would order for Isabelle without asking. He'd scroll through her texts during brunch and make casually cruel remarks like, "Don't eat that, you still want to fit in that dress, right?" I brought it up gently, once, in private. Are you sure this feels like love? I asked her. Because to me, it kind of looks like control. She went ice cold. You just can't stand that someone finally sees me as the prize, she snapped. Maybe not everything needs your logic and your concern. Maybe some of us don't need to run our relationships like coding sprints. That hurt. But not as much as what came next. The invitations were already being printed. The florist had been booked. And at a family brunch one weekend, Isabelle stood up dramatically, handed me a small velvet box with a bracelet inside that read, Sister, Friend, Maid of Honor. For one fleeting moment, I thought maybe just maybe this would be the bridge back to closeness. But I was wrong. Because within weeks, my role began to shrink. Plans were made without me. Appointments were forgotten. A professional planner was hired by Bradley's mother, who immediately began erasing my input like chalk on glass. And still, I stayed. I kept showing up. Until the day Isabelle told me, in a glossy restaurant beside a woman I barely knew, that I was no longer needed. That I wasn't the maid of honor anymore. That maybe I shouldn't come at all. 等于一等于. The restaurant was all glass and marble, perched on the waterfront with a sweeping view of Elliott Bay. I thought we were meeting for brunch, to reconnect maybe, to clear the air after weeks of tension and missed calls. But when I walked in, Isabelle was already seated, with Bethany Kramer. Bethany was a girl from Isabelle's fashion merchandising days, all lip gloss and curated chaos. We'd never been close, but I didn't think we were enemies either. The moment I sat down and saw Bethany's careful smile and Isabelle's slightly trembling fingers around her mimosa, I knew something was wrong. Lauren, Isabelle began, voice light and practiced. I wanted to talk to you about the wedding. I smiled gently. Sure, is everything okay? Well, she stirred her drink with a little gold straw, eyes not meeting mine. Things have gotten a little more complicated with planning. Between Bradley's family, the venue, and just expectations. Bethany gave her a small nod of encouragement. Isabelle took a breath. I've been thinking, being maid of honor might be too much pressure for you, with your job and all. I blinked. I've rearranged meetings, worked weekends, Isabelle. I've made time. I want to be there. She hesitated. Bethany and I have reconnected a lot lately, and she really gets the vision. So, I've asked her to step in as maid of honor. The words felt like ice water pouring into my chest. You're replacing me? I said, barely above a whisper. Isabelle leaned forward quickly. Not replacing, just realigning roles. You'll still be at the wedding, of course. I looked at her then, really looked at her. She wasn't nervous, she wasn't apologetic, she looked resolute, almost relieved. There's something else, she added after a pause, finally meeting my gaze. Bradley feels, and honestly, I agree that your energy around the wedding hasn't been helpful. You've questioned a lot of things. It's felt negative. Negative. I laughed, softly, bitterly. I told you I was worried. About how he speaks to you. About how fast things are moving. That's not negativity, Isabelle. That's concern. Her voice sharpened. You've never supported this. You don't like Bradley. You've made that clear. I've never wanted anything but your happiness, I said. No, she snapped. You want your version of happiness for me. Not what I actually want. The rest of brunch blurred into background noise. I don't remember what I ordered. I don't remember what Bethany said, though I'm sure she tried to fill the silence. When I got home, I called our parents. I expected shock, disbelief, outrage. What I got was something else. Sweetheart? Mom said, voice tinged with forced calm. I know this must hurt, but it's her big day. Maybe she's just trying to avoid stress. Dad added, if we push her too hard, she might cancel the whole thing. The Moores have invested so much. You know how tense it's been. I felt my throat tighten. So that's it? I just accept it? There was a pause. A long one. Then Mom said, try to see it from her perspective. That night, I stared at the ceiling in my condo, numb. I'd done everything right. Always. I had never missed a birthday. Never forgot to show up. And yet, when it came down to it, when it truly mattered, I was disposable. Still, I told myself I'd go to the wedding. Swallow the pain. Smile through it. Until 2 weeks before the ceremony. A text pinged at 7:42 a.m. from Isabelle. After talking with Bradley and his parents, we think it's best if you don't come to the wedding. The tension between us is too much right now. We just want the day to be perfect. Hope you understand. Love you. I sat on the edge of my bed for nearly an hour, staring at that message. Uninvited. By text. That was the moment something inside me stopped trying to explain myself. Not out of bitterness, but because I finally understood. They weren't going to protect me. So I had to protect myself. The morning after that text, I sat at my kitchen table, still in pajamas, my untouched coffee gone cold. My mind was silent, not spinning, not grieving, just empty. My phone vibrated with another message from my mother. We're sure this will all blow over. Just give your sister time. You know how emotional she gets. I powered off my phone. Then I opened my laptop. Within an hour, I had booked a 10-day stay at a secluded eco-lodge in the Monteverde cloud forest in Costa Rica. I used the exact amount I had been saving for Isabelle's wedding gift. It felt oddly poetic. When I told my parents I wouldn't be attending the wedding and wouldn't even be in the country, Mom sounded stunned. You're leaving? Yes, I said, calm, clear. You've all made it obvious I'm not welcome, so I'm going somewhere I am. But what if Isabelle changes her mind? Dad asked. She's made it very clear what she wants, I replied. And I'm finally listening. I arrived in Costa Rica 3 days before the wedding. The air was thick with humidity and the scent of wild orchids. My room had no television, no air conditioning, no distractions, just wide-open windows overlooking the forest and a small wooden deck where hummingbirds danced every morning. I turned off my phone, placed it in the room safe, and locked it away. For the first time in years, no one could reach me. And it felt glorious. I spent my days walking nature trails, breathing in the heavy mist, watching monkeys leap through branches above my head. I signed up for sunrise yoga, even though I'd never done a class in my life. Our instructor, a wiry, sun-wrinkled American named Javier, spoke slowly, his voice full of warmth and gravity. Your body is here, he said one morning as the first rays of light touched the treetops. But where is your mind? Is it still fighting ghosts back home? That question hit me harder than any stretch or pose. Yes, I was here physically, but part of me was still seated at that wedding table, still trying to earn approval from a family that only saw me when I was useful. That afternoon, I met 2 fellow travelers, Nina, a marine biologist from Santa Cruz, and Brooke, a high school English teacher from Vermont. We struck up easy conversation over lunch, and when they invited me to join them on a guided canopy tour, I surprised myself by saying yes. It was the first spontaneous decision I'd made in years. Suspended hundreds of feet in the air, gliding over the jungle canopy, I screamed not out of fear, but release. The tension I'd been carrying for months left my body in one long, wild exhale. That evening, after dinner, I joined Javier's sunset meditation on a wooden platform overlooking the valley. Forgiveness, he said, is not about forgetting. It's not even about others. It's about letting go of the weight that keeps you from rising. As I sat there, surrounded by silence and fading golden light, I realized something. I didn't hate my sister. I didn't even hate my parents. But I was done performing for people who only loved me when I was easy. Each morning after that, I journaled from my balcony, scribbling down memories, long suppressed thoughts, even the words I wished I'd said at that brunch table. On the day of the wedding, I scheduled a full itinerary: yoga at sunrise, a cooking class at midday, and a forest hike with a guide named Mateo who spoke softly and carried stories like sacred stones. That night, as fireflies danced above the river and a thunderstorm rolled gently in the distance, I sat alone with a cup of tea and whispered aloud, I hope she's okay, but I don't regret staying away. And I meant it. For the first time, I hadn't tried to save anyone. I had saved myself. 3 days later, I did what I swore I wouldn't. I turned my phone back on. It vibrated nonstop. 28 missed calls, dozens of texts, 3 voicemails from Mom, 2 from Dad. Even Chloe, my best friend in Seattle, had messaged. Call me, the wedding blew up. Everyone's looking for you. I stared at the screen in disbelief. A text from Dad. Isabelle called off the wedding. We need to talk. Another from Mom. Bradley lied. It's bad. She needs you. My hands trembled as I set the phone down. I pieced together what happened through their voicemails. At the rehearsal dinner, Bradley's best man made a drunken joke about Bradley's crypto crash years ago. Isabelle, confused, asked questions. Bradley deflected. She pressed. He exploded. Later that night, Isabelle found a message on his phone from someone named Mr. Sterling about collapsing assets and something called the Obsidian Fund. The truth unraveled quickly. Bradley wasn't a financial genius, he was drowning in debt, lawsuits, margin calls, smoke and mirrors. When she confronted him, he blamed her, accused her of being shallow, said, "You knew what this was." She fled. He followed to our parents' house furious, threatening to sue for wedding costs. My dad, finally protective, told him to get out or face the police. Isabelle canceled the wedding the next morning. Evelyn Moore, Bradley's mother, tried to spin it. Called it postponed. Blamed Isabelle's fragility. But the damage was done. The story had already spread. And in her old bedroom, sobbing into a pillow, Isabelle kept repeating, "Lauren warned me," and I pushed her away. That night, as the Costa Rican sky lit up with distant lightning, I sat on the balcony and exhaled. They hadn't just excluded me. They'd silenced me. And now? Now they wanted me back. I texted my parents, "I'm safe. I'll fly home tomorrow. But I need you to understand I'm not the same person who left." Then I powered off the phone again. I wasn't ready to be their lifeline, not yet. When my plane landed in Seattle, I didn't rush. I didn't call from baggage claim. I didn't let guilt drive me. Instead, I went home, made tea, took a shower, and slept for 10 straight hours. The next morning, I walked into my parents' house feeling like a version of myself they'd never met. Mom hugged me at the door, tears already spilling. Dad hovered nearby, quiet and older than I remembered. "Isabelle's upstairs," Mom whispered. "She hasn't left her room since everything." "I'll see her," I said. "But first, I need to speak to both of you." We sat in the living room, the same room where they once told me to see it from her perspective. This time, I didn't hold back. "You let her uninvite me, and when I called, crying, you told me to understand. I need you both to know I won't be the one who always disappears to keep the peace anymore." Dad lowered his gaze. Mom nodded, ashamed. "You were right," she whispered, "and we were cowards." I took a breath. "I'm willing to rebuild something with you, but it's going to look different. I'm not going back to the old role. I'm not your fixer." Then I went upstairs. I knocked gently. "It's me." Silence. Then the sound of covers shifting. The door opened. Isabelle stood there in sweats, face blotchy and eyes swollen. She looked at me for a long second, then collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "You still came," she cried. "After everything I did, you came." "I did," I whispered. "But things have to change." She nodded through tears. "I know. I'm sorry. I just didn't want to admit you were right." "I didn't want to be," I said. We talked for a long time. About Bradley, about our childhood, about the resentment neither of us had words for back then. And when I stood to leave, she squeezed my hand and said, "Do you think we could try again? As sisters, not roles?" I smiled gently. I'd like that. For the first time in years, it felt possible. 6 months later, my apartment was filled with quiet laughter, warm lights, and the smell of rosemary turkey. It was my first time hosting Thanksgiving. Isabelle arrived early with a homemade dessert. "No drama," she smiled, handing me the pie. "Just gratitude." Our parents came next. There was no grand speech, just helping hands, soft conversation, and genuine presence. We'd all started family therapy, slowly, awkwardly, honestly. And things weren't perfect, but they were real. After dinner, as we washed dishes together, Isabelle turned to me. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on us, but still standing up for yourself." I looked around at the table I set, the boundaries I drew, the peace I chose, and realized the biggest change wasn't in them, It was in me. And this time, I wasn't disappearing to keep the family together. I was staying, fully present on my own terms,